Welcome, everybody. Good evening. And good night to our friends who have just joined us in Asia and the Middle East. Good afternoon to those of you who have joined us from Europe. And for those who have joined us all the way from Pan America, a very good morning. Hola, bienvenidos a nuestros amigos de México, Argentina, Brasil y otros países latinoamericanos que nos acompañan hoy. Me llamo Neo. Okay, that's all my Spanish for today. Don't ask me more for Spanish, okay? I tried my best. So, my name is Neo. And together with Ilva, Gustavo, Xuanming, my co-founders of IGNITX, who are tuning in as well on the front side, we thank everyone for tuning in. So please allow me now to give you a short introduction of IGNITX. So IGNITX is an international network of event professionals who actually just want to make a difference in the events world, because we are all very used to the events, and we have found that there are many ways to improve it. So we are a group of people, a community of people that want to make a difference. Today, the spotlight, which is on IGNITE showcases, today we are actually highlighting Cynthia Armendaiz and her incredible story of how she got where she is today. That's the whole purpose of this showcases series. We want to introduce and showcase incredible event professionals, the people who work behind the scenes of an event. They are normally not the stars of an event, but they are the ones who make sure that the stars of that event shine. So this series aims to give event professionals like my friend Cynthia the spotlight for once, because their stories, our stories as event professionals, are also equally inspirational, equally challenging, and equally rewarding. So without wasting any more time, let me give you a small introduction without going much into detail about our star today. With more than 18 years of work experience, 10 of that in the sports industry, specializing in the areas of logistics and supply chain, contract management and procurement, our guest today has worked in major sports events like the FIFA World Cup, Commonwealth Games, Pan American Games, Olympic Games, Paralympic Games, and the Youth Olympic Games, and many more sport events. Currently, she is working in Dubai with the Organizing Committee of the World Expo 2020. Our guest, who happens to be my classmate from the International Academy of Sports Science and Technology, or short AISTS. We studied in Lausanne in 2009. And in 2008, she made a rather crazy decision when she decided to leave a stable and well-paid job where she was an engineer in industrial systems in her hometown in Monterrey, Mexico, to pursue a career in sports. I'm sure all of you are asking, oh my God, Cynthia, are you crazy? Why did you do that? So without further ado, please give a virtual welcome to my friend, Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi, Neil. Thank you very much for inviting me and for the introduction. Appreciate that.
I hope I did you well, right? I said everything correct.
I think you summarized everything very good, yes.
Okay, welcome, Cynthia. Thank you for being our guest on episode 3 of IGNITX. Well, as I mentioned earlier to our audience today, both Cynthia and I met when we were studying in Lausanne, and that was actually 11 years ago, Cynthia. Can you imagine? It's been so long. And I think we have achieved so much within this past decade after our graduation, right? So I'm going to ask you your first question. What actually triggered you to quit your job in the steel industry and go into sports instead?
Okay. Like you said before, my bachelor degree is engineer in industrial systems. So after I graduated in Monterrey, I started working in the steel industry there for like 8 years, mainly in supply chain and logistics and all of that. But I don't know, I've always thought that I needed to do something more. I love sports. I love watching sports and playing. I mean, I'm not a professional in that, but I really love that. But moreover, I want one day in the long future, I want to, I don't know, make a difference and create like a school, academic, sports, and artistic school where every child can find their own element. So the one skill that everybody have as unique element. So I don't know, I started thinking about that, and then I thought, okay, obviously it's a very huge goal, so I need to start doing something that is coherent with what I want to achieve. So I started going online and checking the programs, and I chose the one in Switzerland because in Lausanne is the majority of the international sports federations are located in there. And so I just, I don't know, I quit my job. Everybody was surprised, especially my former bosses. And I remember one of them told me, so Cynthia, you're telling me that you're going to quit your job to go to a country where you don't know anybody, and you are going to start a master's degree in sports administration. At that time, I was 30 years old. I was not even that young to start my first master's degree and to live abroad for the first time. So when he said that, I don't know, I freaked a little bit, but it was already too late. So I said to him, yes, I want to try it. I want to see what's going to happen. I don't want to have this regret if I don't do it. And so in 2009, I started this master's degree. You and Tanya were the first two persons that I met because I remember we were neighbors in the same building. So this is pretty much how I started, how I changed my career. And it was difficult, and it was there were a lot of times where I thought maybe I made a mistake, but I can tell you now that I don't regret any of it, nothing.
So when you went online and you decided to apply for AISTS, because I remember that I also applied together with Tanya, it wasn't an easy process because AISTS only has a certain number of people that they accept. So how did you feel when you actually got the confirmation email from AISTS?
I was super excited, and then because I had my acceptance, and of course I wanted to share the news, but I was scared because by that means that people would start talking about me leaving the company. So instead, I start applying for scholarships first. So I make sure that I have the money to leave. And then once I got the scholarship, this is when I announced it, and this is how everything started.
So do you remember one incident that happened in Switzerland when we were together? What happened in the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, we this is a very funny memory, actually. Well, funny now. It wasn't that funny back then, but I think it was the third weekend that I was there. We were there in Switzerland. We went to a mountain in there, and it was the first time, me as Mexican, in the snow. And I think also for you, right, Neil? It was the first time. And of course, we don't know how to snowboard or ski, so we rented, we did some sledging because it was fun and it's easy. And well, I fractured and dislocated one of my shoulders. And it was funny because then, I mean, it wasn't funny, but I remember I had bought, before I arrived to Switzerland, a very expensive jacket. Well, expensive because in Mexico, you don't need this kind of jacket for the cold, but I had invested in that because I was going to Switzerland. And after that accident, I couldn't even wear it properly because I couldn't close it because of the shoulder sling. So it was a very tough beginning, I have to say, from one moment in life to another one. Now I laugh, and we all remember that. I think we have pictures, me in the ambulance and all of that. But
yes,
yeah.
I think we do. Yes, I remember actually on that day, and you're right. I mean, coming from a tropical country, me and Tanya, and you, and I remember our Indian friends as well. The snow was exciting. You know, you can see all the snow coming down. It's like wow. I mean,
Yeah.
it was
I still have to go to a psychologist therapy to overcome that, but yeah, it was fun.
Okay, Cynthia, can you tell us a little bit about the first job after graduating from AISTS? How actually did you land your first job?
So in the master, I don't know if it's still like this right now, but we were supposed to have at least 2 months of internship in a sports organization within Switzerland. And I was like everybody, I guess, scared because I didn't know anybody in Switzerland. Normally you go to your own country and you know a person who knows a person, but I didn't know anybody in Switzerland. And however, the school have this department who advertise the students. And there was a Swiss company who is not related directly to sport, but is related to construction. And they saw my CV, and they actually were interested in me because of my steel experience, not necessarily the steel, but the engineer part of it. And they asked me if they were going to go to South Africa for a planning contract on the FIFA World Cup. And they asked me if I wanted to go with them as an intern. And I thought, wow, I mean, apart from the people who got directly into the IOC or FIFA or UEFA, I think I'm very lucky because I haven't even finished the program and they're already asking me to go to South Africa. So my first, or how I started is in South Africa, and I started 10 months, I think it was 10 months, as an intern. So I had to start from zero, put my ego aside and earn the trust of them because obviously they didn't know me, and you're an intern, so they don't want to give you much of responsibility. So you have to, I had to tell them, hey, maybe this is my first event, but I have a lot of experience, just use me. And so slowly they started trusting me more and more. And so South Africa was like that. I did it as an intern. And then the next projects with them, they already knew how I work, and so then I passed the stage of being an intern. This is how I started.
It's so interesting to hear how you started with your first sport events, because if we look back into episode 2 when we heard about Andres, his first time at a sport event was actually as a volunteer. And I do believe that you also volunteered, because I remember having pictures with you in Singapore 2010.
Yeah, so after South Africa, I went to India for the Commonwealth Games. They asked me to go with them. That was a different position, now a procurement manager or something like that. And while I was there, you were in Singapore, and you asked me, they needed some volunteers, translation. And I said, yeah, put my name in there. And it was great because I was lucky. I was staying directly in the athletes' village. I had my own room, my own toilet, everything, and great accreditation. And all I have to do is go to event, and if somebody from a Spanish-speaking country was winning, then I need to do some translation to the press, and that's it. So it was like a good experience / holiday from India. So it was good.
How long were you in India at that time? 5
months.
5 months.
Yeah.
And how was that experience for you?
Look, this is at the moment this is my 9th event. So I have lived at least in 9 countries, lived and worked, and every country have their own pros and cons. India was difficult in terms of, well, for me it was my 2nd event, so I didn't have much experience, but I felt like the organizing committee maybe wasn't that organized, at least to my view. But I was a contractor. I was not part of the organizing committee. But also the good side of it, like Indian food is amazing. People there are amazing. I have very good friends from India. And so you balance it out, everything. And it was a very good experience that, I mean, if I have to do it again, I will do it again, but it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was very, very tough.
So Cynthia, we have a question from my friend in Malaysia, Halim. Cynthia, was there any discrimination faced while being involved in the sport industry, especially working in the areas of logistics?
Look, I have worked twice in the logistics, once in Brazil for the Olympics as a logistic manager, and another one in the Youth Olympic Games in Argentina. Both of them working for a Swiss company, timing and scoring Swiss company. And I didn't face any discrimination, even though it was a Swiss company and I'm Latin American. So I didn't struggle at all, to be honest. I felt very good working with them, and they know how I work, so it's good. I think the discrimination part, and I don't know if maybe we want to call it like this, but it is a challenge, and it is a fact that if I would like to work directly into Switzerland or any European country, if I don't have the European passport, it's more difficult than for other people. That is the challenge, not discrimination, and it's not impossible, but it is something that I think is currently happening. I don't know, but for logistics, I didn't face any struggle in that.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Cynthia. I think because, well, we both come from countries outside of the European Union. Therefore, I also face not discrimination. I wouldn't say there's a discrimination, but it's more of a challenge, especially with paperwork. Because, of course, each country, they want to prioritize their own people first to be able to fulfill their job market, and then only they will look for people outside of their country. So I would say also it was a discrimination. I understand.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Cynthia, can you tell us a little bit about your role right now with Dubai Expo 2020?
Yeah, of course. So my role right now is not any different from any other event where I work as contract manager, which is pretty much managing the contract of, in my case, overlay contractors, which is all the temporary infrastructure that you have to have an event. So it's pretty much the same. The only difference is that you don't have the fields of play like you normally have in a sport event. And you obviously have a lot more of front of house structures as opposed to back of house structures that we normally have in a sports event. And the length of the event, I mean, it hasn't happened yet, so I cannot tell you like my whole experience until it's over. But in principle, the length, instead of 3 weeks of competition, is going to be 6 months of events. So obviously the maintenance of the structures is different, and those kind of things you have to consider into each contract.
And would you say, I mean, because you have also dealt with the Olympic Games, which is actually the biggest sport event in the world, and compare it to the World Expo, is the number, the workload, is it the same? Do you have more contracts because you deal with more contracts in Dubai Expo as it's longer? Like, how is it?
I think it's the same. I think it can only be comparable if it's the same organizing committee, because each host city have their own rules, their own ways of doing things. So this is the difference between one event to another one. But in principle, it's the same. It's the same stress. Again, it hasn't happened this yet because, I mean, we were supposed to have the event this October, but now it's been delayed until next year. So I cannot tell you much yet, but it's the same. As we approach to the event time, obviously the stress starts rising up, and yeah, we know how it is. And then during the event, it goes that fast that you don't even know what is happening. But in this case, it's 6 months, so I'm pretty sure I will know what is happening.
Yeah, I'm sure. And how actually has the pandemic affected your work?
Not much, except for I've been working from home for the last 2 months. So the first 3 days I was very happy because I was thinking, oh, perfect, 10 seconds from my shower to my computer. It's great, and I can sleep a little bit longer. And it was great. And then I started reading the news, mistake, and I started thinking, oh my God, this is gonna last forever. And I made the mistake of changing my routine, and yeah, I was not in my best. So I struggled the next 2 weeks, and but then I came back to the same routine, like waking up early in the morning, do some exercise, meditate, my normal routine. Everything the same except for the fact that I have to work from home. And now we can actually go out to certain places. Of course, you have to wear the mask and all of that, but it's getting better and better. So I always joke that by the time it's completely fine, it's going to be so hot outside that we anyways want to be inside. So probably by October, November, I will be again outside without mask, without anything.
Yes, I remember, because last year when we were having the World Beach Games, it was also very, very hot. And we try as much as possible to stay indoors with the air condition. And the only time that we walk outside was to walk from the hotel to our headquarters and back, and that's it. Nothing else.
It's tough. It's really tough. It's like being in the sauna all the time.
So our most beloved Bhavesh Peter is online right now, and he has a question for you, Cynthia.
Okay.
What has been your most loved game so far?
I think the city that I really love the most when I lived there was Gold Coast in Australia. But event-wise, I love the Youth Olympic Games in Argentina, even though it was only 2 months. And I love Rio as well. I don't know. I mean, I think every city and event have their own good things that you will always remember. But in terms of living, I would say Australia. Australia was pretty cool. And right now, to be honest, I thought it was going to be more difficult. And I mean, apart from the small problem of the pandemic, Dubai is actually a pretty cool place to live. So,
because right now in Dubai it's Ramadan, has that affected a little bit the social, outside the people and getting food and stuff? Is it the same there?
Well, yes, of course. Working hours are reduced, even for non-Muslims. And of course, out of respect for people who are doing who are following Ramadan, we try not to, in front of the camera, to have food or liquids or anything. Restaurants are open only, for deliveries, they're open all day long. But if you want to go and eat something outside, I think it's easier to do it after 6 p.m. or something like that. I haven't done that much. That's why I'm saying something like that. So, yeah, it is a little bit different, but because we are inside, I'm not really noticing that much, to be honest.
Okay. So I see in your CV, Cynthia, I think we have been keeping in touch quite often throughout these 11 years, but there was a period after 2 years in the sports event that you decided to go back to Mexico and return to the steel industry. Why was that?
Yeah, it was, so I went to Switzerland for a year, and then I went to South Africa, then India, then I think Pan American Games in Guadalajara, and then I went to Indianapolis. And when I was in Indianapolis, it was also like small events within the US, but they wanted me, I've always been a freelance, and they wanted me to be more like a permanent employee. And I just didn't see myself living there at that moment. And plus I had been living outside abroad for 3 years or something. So I thought I want to go back. I want to go back to my family, to my friends in Mexico. I got a job again in the steel industry in another company, but in the steel industry. And I remember I told my former boss in Indianapolis, I said to him, when you open an office in New York, call me and then I'll come back. And he told me, Cynthia, that's not going to happen. I said, okay, well, thank you very much for everything. Appreciate it. And I went to Mexico for a year and a half. And then he called me and said, Cynthia, well, it's not Manhattan, but it's New Jersey, which is a bridge from Manhattan. We're putting an office there. Do you want to come? And I said, yes. And because, I mean, of course, I enjoy my time back in Mexico, but it's not the same adrenaline that we have when we're working in events. It's different. And you miss that. You always miss that. Even though we are very stressed, we always miss that feeling of you're working towards something, and you will see it, actually. You will see the result. So he called me to go there, and I went there for another year or so before I went to Brazil. Yeah, it did happen. I had a moment of I need to go back to normality, and I did that.
So, well, I guess this answers Ilva's questions. Have you ever regretted your brave decision to make this big change? I guess not.
Absolutely not. Maybe the first 2 months when I was with my broken shoulder in a very cold country, and maybe there I did have my doubts. I remember the first nights I used to go to sleep thinking, okay, I'm 45 minutes away from the airport. If anything, I just go there and just fly to Mexico. And this is how I kept myself calm, because I was really, really, well, scared. But after that, no, not ever. I think it was the best decision that I've done, to take the leap of faith, and you know, it has been great so far. So no complaints.
So how many countries exactly have you lived in? 8.
I think 9. With this one, I think 9.
And what do you think is going to be the next one?
That is the question that everybody asks me, like, all the time. And I wish I know, but I never know. So when I was in Mexico, just to give you an example, when I was in Mexico, when I went back into the steel industry again, I decided to take Portuguese lessons just in case I was called to go to Brazil. And then when they called me to go to New Jersey and they said, no, we're actually not going to Brazil, I thought, oh, well, okay, I just spent a year of Portuguese lessons for nothing, because I didn't expect that I was going to go to Brazil. But I did. After that, I went and lived in Brazil for 2.5 years. And when I was in Brazil, people asked me, where are you going to go next? And I didn't know. I was not expecting that I was going to go next to Australia, and I did. So I never know. That's why when people ask me, what are you going to do next? I mean, apart from the calendar that we know overall what's going to happen, I don't know. I just flow, and wherever the wind takes me, I'll go there.
So, I mean, being in this kind of career, because I can relate, what would you say your fear, do you have any fear of not getting that next job just in case it didn't come?
Well, of course, but we're used to that. I think everybody that is listening that can relate to that, we always be prepared to, or have to be prepared to, the unknown, because from one project to another one, it can be that you are as lucky as 1 month off, you go to your family, you have holidays, and then in 1 month you're back on track. But it can be 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. You don't know. So there is this kind of, for people who don't like this kind of uncertainty, it can be very stressful. I think by now I'm completely used to it, because it's what it is. It's sometimes you get lucky and you are already with a job even before the one project you're doing is finishing. And sometimes you have to wait and be patient, and that's part of being freelance.
Yeah. And on this point, what would be your advice to maintain yourself during that uncertainty period? I mean, in my case, what I always tell myself is to make sure that I always save at least 6 months of cash, 6 months of savings, to make sure that I can live for 6 months while I get my next job. Would you say that is your same approach?
Yeah, of course. You have to always think of the worst case scenario, because you have to survive. But not only survive, you want to keep traveling, you want to keep doing normal things, right? So yeah, of course, you have to take all of that into consideration when you are accepting a package to go to a project. And making sure that you are saving enough so you can wait if that happens until the next project happens, and so on. Of course, this is a way of being introduced into sports, like being a freelance and going from one project to another one, whether you're working directly for the OC or you're working for a contractor. But there are some people that work directly for the International Sport Federation, IOC, FIFA, and they have a permanent job, which I think this is also very cool. And hopefully one day I can do that myself, because it's cool to be traveling and to be living in other countries. But at some point you also get tired of doing that. It's not my case. I'm still happy doing that. But I don't know if I want to keep doing that until I'm 80, so.
Yes. And Cynthia, actually, your path is a little bit different than mine, because even though we travel from one country to another, I've always worked in an organizing committee. However, I do believe that your employers have always been external parties of organizing committees. Am I correct?
Most of the times, but right now I'm working directly for the organizing committee, and also in Australia I work directly for the OC. There has been 2 times where I work directly for the OC, and the other times I work for either a contractor or stakeholder. Yeah.
So we have a question now. I think it maybe is your friend, and she would like to know, what is your best experience or anecdote so far?
But okay, I have a lot of experiences and anecdote. Maybe I want to say one that I had in Brazil, as I was working as a logistic manager, and we were bringing all the equipment for all the timing and scoring, and fencing in particular had equipment that was going to go directly from the warehouse to the venue. But there was some other equipment that for some reason was going to go first to the National Federation, and then from there to the venue. And of course, you need to have all the equipment, otherwise the event won't happen. So it was not my responsibility to bring that equipment in. So, but they asked me, please find out what it is, because it's not here. And so with my Portuguese, I talked to the guy there, and I don't know, maybe it was a Tuesday, and I said to the guy who answered the phone, hey, you have some equipment there that needs to go urgently to the venue, because otherwise the floor cannot be installed. And he said, very calm, very nice guy, Cynthia, you know what? Everybody's on the venue right now. The key is with this person, but don't worry, they're going to be here on Monday. And I said to him, no, you're not understanding. You can check the competition schedule and you will realize that this is not acceptable. And so we had to take send a taxi to pick up this guy who has the key, bring our own trucks, pick up the equipment, go to the warehouse, change the trucks, because at some time you cannot bring just any truck into the venue. You have to have a specific truck. And send the equipment into the venue around 2 a.m. in the morning, so the guys who were going to install that could work at 6 a.m. in the morning. So those kind of things are funny. You laugh and you're very stressed, and sometimes it's not even your responsibility to do that, but you have to, because otherwise, you know that it's not going to happen if that is not moved.
Yeah, I think those kind of events are very stressful at that time, but then they are the best stories to be able to tell later on, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so we have another question from Miss Delia. As a Mexican, what has your culture brought to each of your professional experiences?
So I have to say that before I left Mexico, like many of my neighbors in Mexico, we tend to, from the US specifically, tend to think, oh, the USA is a better country, and we tend to lower ourselves, like self-esteem. And I was one of them. But when I started traveling and when I started going into other countries, and when I started seeing that they were looking at me in the same level as any other nationality, I completely changed that mindset that people have there. Not everybody, but many people have that. And this is, for example, something that I really admire from India. People there are super proud of being from India, even though it's the same as in Mexico. There's a lot of opportunities to still achieve in there. So I think what brought me in general was just the fact that I got to see that, first, my country is not that bad as I thought, and nobody's better than the other one. It's just, we're just being born in different countries, different conditions, but the opportunities are equally the same for people who wants to go and get more results.
So Cynthia, I think you just answered a part of our first host question, because she says that we encourage the initiative of empowering women in sports, but I think the women must want it themselves. What's your take on this, being a strong sports leader yourself? So I think what you said before is about grabbing that opportunity and not looking down on yourself, you know, and learning to be confident. I think that's very important.
Exactly. It's knowing what you want and what you need to do in order for you to get that. And I guess people will always tell you it's too risky, don't do it. And normally people are talking about their own fears. But I mean, we have to, I mean, if it's something that a person wants to do, I think we always have to follow our intuition, and even if we are wrong, it's worth trying, because, you know, it's not going to be any other opportunity, or maybe it's not that it's not going to be any other opportunity, but if there is an opportunity, we have to be brave and we have to just take it. And yeah.
I think you hit a nail there. We definitely need to be brave, and sometimes we just need to grab that opportunity that is in front of us without thinking twice, I think, in some case. All right, so wow, time actually passed by very fast. I'm gonna end up with another maybe 1 or 2 more questions, because in the beginning, and this is something new to me, I didn't know that you had a dream to build a school that inculcates sport and education together in Mexico. How close are you realizing that dream?
No, I mean, obviously, I'm still working on that, but I did the Master in Sports Administration. I have now a lot of experience in that field, or in the event field. And then when I was in Brazil, I started another master's degree just to be, again, in line with that in Master in Education. So if you look at my CV, it's completely weird. I did another master's. It took me 3 years because it was online, and I couldn't finish it in Brazil because of the Olympics. It was very hectic at that moment. So I finished the degree while I was in Australia. So I have a degree, a master's degree in sports, and another one in education. And well, I don't know when that's going to happen, but at least I'm trying to do baby steps until hopefully one day I can achieve that.
Is your family on this project together with you?
Well, they know about it. I don't know if they're going to be part of it. They need to have certain qualifications, but they know about it, of course. Yes.
That's great. So anyone who is listening here, if you want to contribute, maybe actually we can start a fund for you, and we can collect money to start working on that dream, because I think it's a fantastic dream.
No, I think what I will do, and this is something that I need to start doing pretty soon, is I'm going to start contacting specific people, because you have to have specific people for each position. And yeah, we have to build it, and I know what I need to do. So just stay tuned.
Maybe we will have like a follow-up episode of this, just to listen to the next steps in your dream come true, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, Cynthia, we have a question now from the audience, from my fellow co-founder, Gustavo. And he says, Hi, Cynthia. What is your general view of the future of global events market after COVID?
Well, that's a difficult one. I think personally that this year, 2020, is like a big reset for everybody. So doesn't count. Everything that was supposed to happen this year is going to happen next year. But I have faith and I trust that this situation will pass over the next 2-3 months, and everything will be back to normal. So I think it's just a matter of the organizations to be patient, people to be patient. That's all we can do. I mean, we have to wait for a solution on this situation. And yeah, but it's a difficult one because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I have my personal view on that, and I think by August, September, everything should be back to normal.
Well, I don't know whether back to normal is the correct phrase. Because
well, right normal as in brackets.
The new norm. The new norm.
Yes.
Okay. Lastly, what advice do you have for people who have or who want to have a change of career?
Well, I will say follow your intuition. Your intuition is normally correct. So if your intuition is telling you to go and do a change in your career, do it. If your intuition is telling you to stay in your country, stay in your country. But don't, I mean, it's better, I think, it's better always to try, even if you make a mistake, because you will get an experience, you will grow from that experience, regardless if it was a positive or a negative outcome, than to not even trying. Because when you don't try, then you regret. And that is something that I personally don't want to face. I always rather go for it and then realize, oh, well, maybe I should have done it, but I'm glad that I tried. So if it's in your intuition to do it, go for it. And for people like me who start or who wants to do this like already with a lot of working experience, I will also recommend to be humble, because you're starting a new career and you might start like me as an intern from this new career. You may be lucky and you will be the director or the manager, but if not, it's okay to start from zero. Yeah, put your ego aside. And you know, I always joke with you, Neo, and I said, okay, if I ever want to work in accreditation or sports entries that I don't have any experience, I know that I'm going to have to start from zero. It doesn't matter how much experience I have in other areas. But that's the attitude that you have to have in order to achieve something. And don't be afraid. And you know this phrase that it says something like, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and sometimes you learn. I think you will always learn regardless if you win or you lose. So I don't know, no fear. I will say no fear for whatever it is that you decide.
Very wise words, Cynthia. I think the past 10 years have actually made us, those of us who studied in AISTS, wiser, have made us older, although I do think that I still look young. And you
yeah, me too. 5 years old.
Okay, last words, Cynthia. I believe that that your story has been incredible. It has inspired, or it will inspire, or it's already inspiring people who have joined us today to possibly listen to their heart. Because sometimes I believe that some people are stuck in their job, and that in a way is hindering them for true happiness. So I would like to take this opportunity to remind everybody that you have to love what you do. And Cynthia, any last words?
Yeah, like you said, like follow your heart, and don't be afraid to leave the comfort zone. I'm going to put it in brackets because sometimes it's not even comforting anymore. And yeah, just jump, take the leap of faith, and yeah, just go for it. It's okay.
And I think also, Cynthia, we discussed this a lot, is that for young for young leaders or for young students who are aspiring to work in sport events? Don't only look into working in the bigger organizations.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that would be the dream. I would say even for me right now to work directly for the IOC or for FIFA or UEFA. But that's not the only way that you can get involved with the events. You can work directly for a contractor who is working for the event. You can work for an international federation or a national federation or a stakeholder. There are many ways that you can start. So if you're just going to be focused on working for the IOC, I mean, it's not impossible, but you have to open your spectrum of possibilities, so it's easier for you to enter in. And once you're there, believe it or not, maybe the first time is going to be tough, but the next time people already know you, and then the third time more people know you, and we are like a big family. Even though we are from different functional areas, we're like a big family who are traveling from one country to another one, and so it's great. It's a great experience. Plus, you get to see a result when you are in the opening ceremony. I don't know about you, Neo, but I always want to cry because you can see the result of all your work over the last months or years. And that's something that doesn't happen in any other, let's say, normal job. You actually see a result, and that's priceless, to be honest.
I totally get you. I'm getting like goosebumps right now because, you know, for somebody who has worked so hard behind the scenes, and then when you see the athletes walk in and then you hear the national anthem of the host city, and you see all the hard work that everybody from behind the scenes have put in for the past 5, 6, 7 years to making this big show come to life. And when it all happens, it is so worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, to everyone who have joined us today, I would like to thank you, and I hope that the story of Cynthia, my friend, has inspired you, and do come back to our next episode, which is going to be this Friday, and we will hear from another very inspiring young man who took a different path to where he is right now. And hopefully my story, Andres' story, Cynthia's story, and the future event professionals' stories will be able to inspire you and to make sure that you always try to achieve and reach for the stars, and don't let anything hinder you from aiming high. So with that, I would like to thank everyone. Thank you very much, Cynthia, for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me, Neil.
No, it was my pleasure. And I think the last comment here from my classmate, Cynthia, who is your favorite Malaysian?
Of course, my mom, my Malaysian mom, Tanya. You know.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And have a safe evening, safe morning, and safe afternoon. Stay safe, stay strong.
Neo.
Yes.
Salamat malam.
Buenas noches. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.